So I have a theory that you can cheat on a lot of tests by just reading the glossary, and that'll get you most of the way there. Because in order to understand the word, you have to understand the concept, and that's usually what they're trying to get you. If you don't know the word, it's probably a new concept. And so this is for the CompTIA Security Plus 601. And I already have the CompTIA A plus 1001, and so I think this is the next good step. A .p7b is a certificate format that can be used by itself in IIS as the basis for SMIME, which is messaging, some sort of email, and single sign-on. 5G is fifth generation advanced wireless network technology developed based on the 802.11ac IEE wireless standard. We already know what 5G is, most of us here in 2022. The 802.1x is a IEE standard that defines port-based network access control. It defines the port-based network access control, the 802.1x. Not to be confused with the 802.11x wide wireless local area network standards. 802.1x is a data link layer authentication technology used to connect hosts to a local area network or wireless local area network. It's wireless. It allows you to apply a security control that ties physical points to end device MAC addresses and prevents additional devices from being connected to the network. It's a good way of implementing port security, much better than simply setting up MAC filtering. Acceptable use policies are policies that define the rules restricting how a computer, network, or other system may be used. An access control list is a list of permissions attached to an object specifying what level of access a user, users, or groups have to that object. When you're dealing with firewalls, an access control list is a set of rules that apply to a list of network names, IP addresses, and port numbers. The access control model is a collection of policies to determine the level of access that a subject has on a resource, the system, application, or data to be protected. There are four major types of access control models: the mandatory access control, role-based access control, discretionary access control, or rule-based access control. There's rule-based and role-based, and then mandatory or discretionary. The access control vestibule are entries with panels built from prefabricated composite or metal that are used as a way to control ingress-egress of a building, allowing security to have visibility into persons and accessing the facility. These can be used to control the heat and airflow in their facilities. Access policies are policies that are implemented to allow or deny access to an entity. This could be a network file or any kind of resource. The account audit is the process of auditing the permissions that are assigned to accounts on a system. Permissions often are added when needed, but never removed when not needed. That's just often the case. Account permissions. Permissions such as file and printer access that can be assigned to individual users or to groups. Accounting is the process that logs login session statistics and usage information when a user accesses an application, system, or device. Acquisition. In digital forensics, the process of collecting specific data related to an attack, intrusion, or investigation, which can include computer media and other devices that store electronic data. The Active Directory is a Microsoft directory service that authenticates and authorizes users and computers. Active reconnaissance is an attacker's method that is carried out on a target mostly by using network and vulnerability scanners. Active/active. A load balancing scenario in which each device performs work simultaneously, thus sharing the load. Active/passive. A load balancing scenario in which one device actively performs work while the other works in standby mode. A address space layout randomization is a programming method involving random arrangement of different address spaces used by a program. It helps prevent the exploitation of buffer overflows, remote code execution, and memory corruption vulnerabilities. It can also aid in protecting mobile devices from exploits caused by memory management problems. Administrator accounts are accounts on a system with higher level privileges. They are similar to root accounts on a Linux system. An advanced persistent threat is a sophisticated attack that can remain undetected for a long time. Also, a government state actor attack is often referred to as an APT, although this term can also refer to the set of computer attacking processes themselves. Often, a APT entity has the highest level of resources, including open source intelligence and covert sources of intelligence. Adversary tactics, techniques, and procedures are the tactics, techniques, and procedures used by attackers to compromise a system or network. And that's pretty forward. An air gap is a concept that refers to the gap or lack of connection between a computer and other networks. Because the computer isn't directly connected to the network, it can't be attacked through the network. An allow list is a list of allowed applications or functions that are accessible to a specific resource, such as another application, system, or user. The list is inclusive. If the application is not listed, access is denied. Always on VPN. A VPN client that immediately and automatically establishes a VPN connection when an internet connection is made. An annualized loss expectancy is the total expected loss in dollars per year due to a specific incident. And the annualized rate of occurrence is the number of times per year that a specific incident occurs. The anonymization is a method of obfuscating data such that the data can be used for legitimate purposes while not exposing the identity of the data owner. Anti-malware is straightforward. Antivirus software is straightforward. Anything as a service. Cloud-based services that don't fall in the software, platform, or infrastructure as a service. For example, when a large service provider integrates its security services into the customer's existing infrastructure, it is often referred to as security as a service. API inspection and integration. A capability available in all cloud computing environments. It allows for better automation of workflow deployment, and these integrations typically need to be enabled in the work environment to utilize them. Application approved list. An index of approved software, applications, or executable files that are permitted to be present and active on a computer system. Application block list or deny list is an index. That's pretty straightforward. Application DDoS attacks. Attacks that target the resources of Layer 7 applications and often leverage known vulnerabilities against specific software. Application Programming Interface, API, is a programmable framework that enables other systems to interact with an application. However, lack of adequate controls and monitoring makes effective security testing of APIs difficult to automate, which makes them vulnerable targets. Application provisioning is a process to adequately and securely deploy an application on premises or in the cloud. Application scanners are devices used to assess application-specific vulnerabilities and operate at the upper layers of the OSI model. Arduino is an open-source electronics platform based on easy-to-use hardware and software. ARP is a command that displays and modifies entries in the Address Resolution Protocol cache, which contains one or more tables that are used to store IP addresses and their resolved Ethernet physical addresses. ARP cache poisoning is when an attacker manipulates the Address Resolution Protocol cache on a host to redirect traffic and perform an on-path attack. Artifacts are remnants of an intrusion that can be identified on a host or network. Asset management is a policy for onboarding and offboarding devices. It specifies how they're registered and activated and how they're later decommissioned. Asset value is, of course, the monetary value of an asset. Asymmetric encryption, a process that uses a public key and private key pair to encrypt and decrypt messages when communicating. The ATT and CK is a set of matrices created by the MITRE to document and explain the adversarial tactics and techniques used by attackers to compromise systems and networks. It's the process of explaining what happened. Attestation is the process that serves to bear witness and to confirm, authenticate, verify, and document. Attribute-based access control. An access model that's context-aware and able to change. Access rights are granted to users through the use of multiple policies that can combine various user, group, and resource attributes together. Attributes are characters that authenticate a user in either a physical or behavioral manner. Audio steganography is a technique used to transmit hidden information by modifying an audio signal in an imperceptible manner. Steganography, it's like when you hide like a text file in a JPEG, or if you hide a JPEG in an audio file, or when you're hiding a file in another file. So that's what steganography is. And authenticated mode, an encryption type that includes authentication or authenticated encryption and authenticated encryption with associated data. With authenticated encryption, the requirement is to protect both the privacy of the message and to ensure authenticity. A method for achieving both of these goals at the same time is called authenticated encryption. An authentication application is a program that generates security codes for signing in assets. The authentication header is a protocol that defines an optional packet header to be used to guarantee connectionless integrity and data origin authentication for IP packets and to protect against replays. I don't know exactly what a replay is, but an authorized hacker is an IT person who is allowed to do it before it goes live. And an automated courses of action, a DevOps environment component for secure provisioning and deprovisioning of software, services, and infrastructure. Automated indicator sharing is an automated way to share indicators of compromise and threat intelligence information. An autopsy is a forensic platform to the sleuth kit. And it's how you find what happened on a computer. Now for the B's. A backdoor is a method used in computer programs to bypass normal authentication and other security mechanisms. Background checks are procedures typically done when an employee is going through the hiring process. A bandwidth monitor is a software that tracks bandwidth use all over areas of the network. Barricade is a defensive barrier in reality. A base group is a common vulnerability scoring system that represents the intrinsic characteristics of a vulnerability that are constant over time and don't depend on a specific user environment. A user-specific environment. A baseband radio is the original frequency range of transmission signal before it's modulated. It can also refer to the type of data transmission in which analog data is sent over a non-multiplex channel. The baseline configuration is a method used to assess the current security state of computers, servers, network devices, and the network in general after a minimum desired state of security is defined. Baseline reporting is the process of reporting the security state of computers, servers, network devices, and the network after a baseline's been determined. Bash is a Linux and Unix-based scripting shell and framework. For example, in Microsoft, it's PowerShell. Binary, we know what binary is. It's ones and zeros. Biometric attribute. It's authentication such as face recognition, retina scan, or fingerprint scan. And biometrics are those three. Fingerprint, retina, or voice is a biometric. A birthday attack is an attack on a hashing system that attempts to send two different messages with the same hash function, causing a collision. So a hash is when it's sort of like encrypting. And yeah, I can see how it's possible for there to be multiple inputs that result in that output. A hash will change it to be a designated number of characters. And it's called a birthday attack because of the birthday problem or whatever, where the chance of there being two people with the same birthday is very likely. Black box testing is a way of testing the internal workings of an application or system where the tester has no knowledge of the system being tested. A block cipher is an encryption method that applies a deterministic algorithm along with a symmetric key to encrypt a block of text instead of encrypting one bit at a time, as in stream ciphers. Block list, deny list is pretty obvious. A blockchain, which usually gets brought up in cryptocurrency, is a specific type of database. It differs from a typical database in the way it stores information. A blockchain stores data in blocks that are chained together. As new data comes in, it's entered in a fresh block. And once the block is filled, it's chained onto the previous block, which makes it chained together in chronological order. So I think that's like, it's data with continuity. So you would know that only 2021 happened in 2021, for example. I don't know. The blue team is a term used to identify the defenders of an organization. Blue team is the defense team. And it involves the incident response and information security team. Bluejacking, unsolicited message to Bluetooth-enabled devices. Blue snarfing is accessing information through a Bluetooth connection without authorization. And a bollard, a steel, short, sturdy, anchored post that you put in concrete or whatever. Boot attestation is a process that allows a remote platform to measure and report its system state in a secure way to find a third party. It will check if someone messes with it. Boot integrity is the reliability of the operating system and loading mechanism during the booting process. It can be checked using a secure method. A botnet is a large group of compromised systems, known as bots. Bridge Protocol Data Unit, GARD, is a mechanism to prevent receipt of BPDUs from a connected device, such as a client reflecting BPDUs back to the switch. Bring your own device. Employees bring a device of their choosing. Brute force attack is a password attack where every possible password is attempted. And the best way to prevent that is exponential backoff or limiting the number of password attempts. And a buffer overflow is when a process stores data somewhere that it's not supposed to store it. So I think that's actually what happened in Westworld. And bug bounties, it's where organizations will pay you for each bug you find. The business continuity plan is a current tested plan in the hands of all personnel responsible for carrying out any part of the plan, so that your organization has the best shot at success during a disaster. Business partners. Third-party risk management. Business partnership agreement. Contract that establishes the profits, responsibilities, and exit strategies. Cable locks. We know what cable locks are. They're like for your bikes. The California SB 1386. Enacted in 2003, it's a law that requires California businesses to let everyone know when there was a breach of security. Camouflage is the complicating of source code to make it more difficult for people to understand. A captive portal is a method used by hotels, coffee shops, and that redirects users to a web page for authentication prior to normal internet use. Yep, like hotels. And it's supposed to track users. And if you do any suspect actions, they can be traced. That's what a captive portal is. Capture the flag. It's a training where students play in a red blue team scenario. Card cloning, where an attacker clones a credit card, smartphone SIM card, or building access badge. A CAT, which is short for concatenate. A Linux command that copies standard input to standard output. So it's copy-paste. CCMP, counter mode with cipher blockchaining message authentication code. Protocol. An encryption protocol used with your Wi-Fi security that meets a standard. Center for Internet Security, a nonprofit organization from 2000 to provide security best practice guiding for enhancing the security of cyberspace. A certificate authority, a server that issues certificates to users. Certificate revocation list is digitally signed certificates revoked by the certificate authority. Certificates are documents that bind a public key with a user identifier. Chain of custody is a process that provides assurances that evidence has been controlled and handled properly after collection. Challenge Handshake Authentication Protocol. An authentication scheme used by the point-to-point protocol, which in turn is the standard for dial-up connections. It uses challenge response mechanism with one-way encryption. And it's been like 26 minutes and we're not even through C. The process that's put in place to handle requests to make changes to a system is more efficient and in a more efficient and coordinated manner. The change control. Change management. A structured way of changing the state of a computer system, network, or IT procedure. chmod is the Linux command and system call that is used to change the access permissions of file system objects. Choose your own device is a device policy where employees select a device from a company-approved list. A cipher suite is a set of algorithms that helps secure a network connection that uses transport layer security. The set of algorithms that cipher suites usually contain include a key exchange algorithm, bulk encryption algorithm, and message authentication code algorithm. Cleanup is the process of completely removing any individual files or data from target systems after the testing phases of a penetration testing engagement are complete. Client-side execution, anything performed on the client end of the communication, usually on their browser. Client-side validation is the ability to properly handle application and user input to prevent a security vulnerability and client-side execution. Closed circuit television is a video surveillance system that uses cameras to monitor specific areas. Cloud Access Security Broker is a tool that's utilized in organizations to control access to and use of cloud-based computing environments. Cloud backups, pretty straightforward. Cloud computing, offering on-demand services that extend the capabilities of a person's computer or organization's network, like browser-based email or a pay-per-use basis. For storage, infrastructure, online gaming, and a network connection of some sort is required to make the connection to the cloud. Cloud Controls Matrix, a framework established by the Cloud Security Alliance for cloud computing. The Cloud Security Alliance was established in 2008 with the goal of promoting best security practices in cloud computing environments. Code reuse is the act of reusing third-party open-source software or code developed internally by an organization. Code signing is digitally signing executables and scripts to confirm the software author and guarantee that the code has not been altered or corrupted since it was signed. A cold aisle So data centers will have a hot aisle and a cold aisle, and the rows are composed of rack fronts. A cold site, however, is unrelated to temperature. It has basic phone, data, and electric lines. A lot of configuration of the computers and data restoration is necessary before the site can be properly utilized. This type of site is used only if a company can handle the stress of being non-productive for a week or more. Whereas a hot site is usable immediately, a cold site will take a week or more. A collision, when two different files end up using the same hash, which is what happens in a birthday attack. Command and control, the controlling master computer directing the actions of a botnet, which distributes internet malware. The Common Security Advisory Framework is a standard that enables different stakeholders across different organizations to share critical security-related information in a single format, speeding up information exchange and digestion. CSAF is also the name of the technical committee in the OASIS Standards Organization. CSAF. It's the framework. I want it formatted this way, and I will also format it this way. That way we can communicate quickly. Common vulnerabilities and exposures. A standard created by MITRE that provides a mechanism to assign an identifier to vulnerabilities so that you can correlate the reports of those vulnerabilities among sites, tools, and feeds. Community cloud is a mix of public and private cloud deployments. Where multiple organizations can share the public portion. Compensating controls. Mechanisms put in place to satisfy security requirements that are either impractical or too difficult to implement. For example, instead of using expensive hardware-based encryption modules, an organization might opt to use network access control, data loss prevention, and other such security methods. Or, on the personnel side, instead of implementing segregation of duties, an organization might opt to do additional logging and auditing. A compiler is a program that translates, verifies, and processes source code. Compile time errors are program errors that occur while the program is being compiled. Conditional access is an access control model where access is granted based on specific criteria requirements. Confidential is the classification where unauthorized access to the information would cause damage to national security. Configuration management, an ongoing process created with the goal of maintaining computer systems, servers, network infrastructure, and software in a desired, consistent state. The reviews reveal potential security problems in the configuration reviews. Container security is the use of various tools for securing containerized cloud computing environments. Some of these tools are native to the actual cloud computing environment, and some are third-party solutions and run on those environments. Containers are logical units of software. So it's whatever you want to think of it. And all the dependencies needed to run it. Containers are lightweight, standalone, executable software packages that include code, runtime environments, system tools, and related software libraries. Two of the most popular examples of container solutions are Docker and Linux LXC containers. Containment is the method where information access is controlled. Content URL filtering, that's pretty obvious. Continuity of operations plan, a federal initiative to encourage people and departures to plan to address how critical operations will continue under a broad range of circumstances. Continuous delivery, software development process in which developers produce software in short cycles while making sure that the software is reliable and secure. Continuous deployment, automation of application deployment, provisioning, and underlying network components and infrastructure. Continuous integration. where programmers merge, test, and deploy code changes in a central repository, multiple times or day, several times a week. Continuous monitoring. A DevOps environment component that ensures applications and systems are operating correctly and securely. Continuous validation is where applications and code are validated in an automated fashion. Copy backups is pretty obvious. Corporate owned, personally enabled. A device policy in which the company supplies employees with a phone that can also be used for personal activities. Corrective controls. Controls used after an event. They limit the extent of the damage. Tape backups, hot sites, and other fault tolerance and disaster recovery methods are considered corrective controls. But they're also referred to as compensating controls sometimes. Counter mode is an encryption mode that uses an arbitrary number that changes with each block of text encrypted. Oh, not counter, but counter. Because the counter changes for each block, the problem of repeating ciphertext that results from the electronic codebook method is avoided. Counterintelligence, we know what that is. Credential harvesting, where you harvest credentials. Criminal syndicates, we know what those are. Critical, and important to the continued function of a business. Alright, so crossover error rate is the point where the false rejection rate and the false acceptance rate are equal. It's just kind of trivia. Cross-site request forgery is a type of vulnerability where an attacker lures the targeted user to execute unwanted applications on a web application. And they leverage the trust the application has in a user. It's where you trick someone into hurting the website. Not you, though. You're not breaking the law. But cross-site scripting is the other side. They make you think it's the right website, but it's actually a evil website. Whereas cross-site request forgery is where they think it's a nice user, but it's actually secretly an evil user. Cryptographic attacks are attacks against cryptographic implementations. Crypto malware, advanced form of ransomware that leverages advanced encryption techniques to prevent files from being decrypted. So they lock up all your stuff. Cuckoo, open source software for automating analysis of suspicious files. So it's kind of like a virtual machine. Curl, a Linux command line tool to transfer data to or from a server using any of the supported protocols. That's pretty much all of them. Customer data. Okay, we know what customer data is. It's data from the customer. CVSS, Common Vulnerability Scoring System, an industry standard used to convey information about the severity of vulnerabilities. How bad is it? Cyber kill chain, a series of steps that trace stages of a cyber attack. So they see what they can do, and then they get data. cybersecurity insurance. It's insurance for cybersecurity. I've been reading this for 40 minutes. I'm gonna cut off the video.